So what you're looking at is one of the early stages of Whirlwind Family Farm. When we first moved out here, it was basically a cow pasture when we bought this piece of land here in Central Texas. And if it weren't for my two sons, just appreciate them so much. They came out, pitched in, and helped my wife and I build the high tunnels, which we built three. The instructions are straightforward, but it takes manpower, it takes time and patience to get those things built. So without them, we couldn't have gotten it done. And then as we started talking to locals, when I say locals, my wife and I are, again, we're born and raised in Texas, but never had lived in this part of Texas where the deer population is so high. And people said to us, you are going to build a deer fence, a high fence, right? And we both looked at each other and said, yeah, I guess that we are. So, again, just by blessings, I found a gentleman who had been building fences in the Texas Hill Country for over 20 years. Got in contact with him. He gave me a bid, which at the time I thought was a little expensive. But looking back on it, the time, the material, and especially what those would cost now here a few years later, I feel like it was very well priced, and so glad we got it in place. Now, I will say, if you have a small backyard garden, this is not an expense you're ever going to need. But in a market garden setting out here in the Texas Hill Country where the deer population is so high, we had to go with something to protect this garden setting. So the process began of my wife and I clearing it, which was by hand. It was long. It was difficult, getting rid of different weeds and grass burrs, and then coming in with compost and starting the process of making that garden start to prosper. So with time, it did. And as it did start to do well, each night when I would go to bed, I would look to my wife and say, did I close that front gate? And she would say, well, I think you did, which prompted me to purchase a Wi-Fi driven camera that looks out over this market garden. And each night I can have kind of a little bit of peace to know that that front gate is closed and don't have to get up out of bed and go check. Well, from what the locals told me from the beginning, you can see proof positive, and this happens many nights. If you look at this camera, the infrared lighting right there, kind of center right, you can see a young doe and buck that are munching on some Bermuda grass that has kind of grown in where our compost pile is. We're in late December and the compost is pretty much done, but that Bermuda grass thrives right there, and the deer take advantage of it. So without that high fence, they would come right on in, start to eat up those vegetables, and that would be just a big loss. So it may not be always something you need, but in an area like us, we certainly had to have it. So blessings over your garden, over you, your family, your garden. Talk to you soon from Whirlwind Family Farm.